Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Sunday live stream where we talk about photography and I try to answer your questions on photography in general if you have any, and on any of my videos, of course. I always do the best I can, and I know it's been a while since I've done a solo live stream. I had the annual meetup last month, and it's been since December, since before that, and November before that. So I apologize. I haven't been able to do the live streams lately, and there's a lot of different reasons. Mainly, I just kind of need a little break and refocus my energy to making videos. And but I do want to keep the live streams going, is at least once a month. So definitely check for it. Maybe the every third or fourth, Sunday of the month, if not more often. But I think the live stream community or community of people here in the stream, has been one of the greatest experiences I've had um, since I started working on YouTube, and I really miss coming out and talking to everybody. So sorry if I sound a little tired. I've been up since 5 a.m. trying to, I went to a photo walk this morning with a lot of the Davids that I see here, David Tellett and David, um, the other David. Oh my God, David Crooks. That's where my brain is. It's just falling apart. Oh, sometimes I wonder, I should get that checked out maybe. But basically, it's March of 2023, and I just realized this. I've had this Olympus OM-1 for a year now, so I figured I'd just kind of start out and talk about this a little bit, and then I'll get into your questions. But this the OM-1, just like my EM1 Mark III, is really my workhorse camera. I don't take it quite out as much as I do, say, my Pen F for like my daily photo walks and things. And it's completely replaced my Panasonic S5 for video work now that it has the 10-bit video. So and they added the 4K 60, so it just kind of gave it an edge for the kind of video work that I do over the Panasonic S5. Now, it's not to say the S5 doesn't take fantastic video, and it is in almost every way superior in terms of image quality. But like I said, for the kind of work I do, not so much. Having the 4K 60, the IBIS is way superior, and now that it can do 10-bit, that just brought it right into the realm of where I can use it professionally for like my architectural type photography and real estate photography. So I know it's been some people have questioned, do I'm actually a working photographer? And yeah, I'm a jobber, like a lot of the photographers that you see on YouTube. I get out there, and I just came back from a job yesterday where I took the OM-1 out, and it just it's just an amazing camera. Now, the biggest things that it's done for me that I haven't been able to do before is the birding, right? Birds and flight type photography. And I see there's a question here from John Follows that's kind of related to that. But that's a genre that I would have never got into were it not for this camera. And adding the 300 millimeter f4 Pro, finally I was able to justify that kind of expense because that's an expensive lens. So it justified that purchase, and it really makes me appreciate really the getting pro lenses from the Olympus or OM Systems lineup, because you really want to have the best lenses when you have their flagship camera essentially. You can tell there's a difference, and it just then the whole camera system with the professional lenses just feels professional. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just a whole nother level than, say, my Pen Fs and my EM10s and my Pen PL8s and stuff. Those are all definitely consumer grade cameras, and they can take just as good a picture as the OM-1. But when you take the OM-1 out and start using some of the advanced features, the superior image stabilization, it has the best. That with the other computational things and the speed of operation, it really is a fantastic camera. And I know recently there was a flurry about the autofocusing system. And as I said in a few videos I did on the subject, it's really not an issue for me, you know. uh, it was only until Robin Wong brought it up that he found it focusing taking longer to focus or acquiring focus than his previous cameras. And I get it, the kind of photography he does, being in low light, a lot of times trying to focus on someone's face or something where there may not be the kind of contrast you would normally get compared to the kind of photography that I do, where I've just never ran into an autofocusing issue with this camera. And quite honestly, I still don't. It's still amazing. And it is superior really almost in every way. And I noticed that even in my professional work, I use the touch to focus a lot because the camera's on a tripod, and I just touch where on the in the frame on the screen that I want to focus on to start the exposures, because I do a lot of bracketing. And on the M1 Mark III, time to time there would be uh, something slightly out of focus. Now it still happens with the OM1, but a lot less frequently. I took basically uh, 70 images yesterday altogether. I mean, it was actually 280 some, but since it's all bracketed, you have to kind of divide that by 3, actually by 4, because I do another shot for flash. But uh, out of the 70 image, only one was just slightly out of focus, and not so much that I couldn't use it because I shrink everything down to just 1080p anyway for delivery to my clients, and that's just how it is in the real estate. Uh, I do mostly commercial real estate, and delivering anything higher than that is just waste. It's wasted on the all the MLS systems or whatever content management system they use to display their properties, because it gets compressed again down to even something smaller a lot of times. So like I said, for my kind of work, I'm always in good light. I'm always focusing on things with good contrast, and it's been flawless for me. Now, in situations where I did an event in low light, and a couple of times I'm in low light, again, if you focus on anything with just a tiniest bit of contrast, it 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 locks on, no problem. Like the test I did in that other video, it was a very low contrast target and very dim light. And, it did struggle, right, up to a certain point. But as soon as you add something with contrast, oh my God, it's right there. So again, it to me, it's no big deal, but I can appreciate where someone in Robin Wong's field might notice it right away, that there's a difference. So I don't want to take anything away from what Robin Wong is experiencing. It certainly was an issue for him, but it just hasn't been for me. And for the majority of viewers that commented in the video, it really wasn't an issue for them. But there was the occasional, I went back to my EM1X or I went back to my EM1 Mark III because of this problem. And by problem, and I use that term loosely, I look at it more as a compromise, right, for better autofocusing performance when there's enough light versus having these getting autofocus in lower light. I don't know if that's an algorithm type thing, but I suspect it is, because you can focus on starry skies, right, with the starry sky AF, which is using a totally different algorithm to focus on. And that's, you don't get much dimmer than that. You're talking about 30-second, 1-minute exposures to focus on stars. So, is there some balance that they can improve the low light autofocusing performance while not taking anything away from the current AF performance? I don't know. Something for them to figure out. They may need to add one additional mode for autofocusing, just like they have a separate mode for Starry Sky AF. Have a separate one for low light. If that's possible. Uh, but I don't know. Like I said, that's something for the engineers at OM Systems to come up with. And I've read a recent interview with OM Systems at one of the photo shows overseas from me, and they're definitely focused on outdoor adventure wildlife type photography, which includes macro photography, hence their new 90 macro lens. And so I feel like that definitely, that's the direction they chose, right? People that do portraits and event photography or other types of street photography, you're not going to see a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of media or entertainment in that sense from OM Systems. They're not going to entertain those types of photographers quite as much. That's certainly, the camera is capable of all of those genres, right? Of really any genre, but they're not going to entertain that as much as sports, action, wildlife type photography. And for that, the OM system is definitely very strong competitor. Which leads me to also the OM-5, which I think I'm trying to figure out a way to get one of those myself now. I didn't think I would get one, but and I'm still a tiny bit on the fence about it. Yesterday was the last day to get $200 off a brand new one, so I missed that, unfortunately. But I was thinking about it, mainly because of the astrophotography side. It has the Starry Sky AF, and that's that. And I used OM-1 for Starry Sky, my astro stuff too, but on my tracking mount, I can put two cameras at the same time, and they help balance each other out actually for even better tracking. And it'd be nice to have two cameras that could just Starry Sky AF for me, and I'm just push a button and I'm done with the focusing, because it's a pain to focus on stars with fly-by-wire type lenses, right? But definitely the astrophotography side is very, very strong with the Micro Four Thirds systems in general, because it's almost the perfect sensor size, right? With compared to what's available, because you get too big a sensor like a full frame, and you have to deal with heat issues and noise from heat developed by. So ultimately, a full frame sensor doesn't perform as well as a Micro Four Thirds because of the heat generated when the shutter's on. And of course, the smaller sensors, the 1 inch and the 2/3, those don't have to deal with noise so much, but then you typically get lower resolution, right? Those are like 8, 10, 12 megapixel type sensors. A lot of them are even 4 megapixels. So, because I was looking at some professional, well, I don't want to call them professional, but consumer grade type telescope systems that have the cameras built in, and they're $2,000-3,000. They're not cheap, but they use these little tiny sensors, and they're like 5 or 6 megapixels or something ridiculously low, and yet the images you can get out of those for astro is pretty amazing, and it's all automated and stuff. But a lot of astrophotography cameras, dedicated ones, are Micro Four Thirds sensors, and a lot of them are the same ones that we find in our Pen Fs and EM1s, for example. Um, so that's why I'm thinking about the OM5 is primarily for that. Uh, and it's a very niche case. Otherwise, I don't think really anyone needs to consider the OM5 if they have an EM5 Mark III, or even an EM1 Mark II. Uh, the EM5 Mark III, I'm sorry, the OM5 doesn't bring a lot of new things to the table that you can't already do for the most part in your EM5 Mark IIIs. Um, but it's only those special situations, like in my case, or maybe you want to do handheld high-res shot modes more, or maybe you need that just a little bit better image stabilization and better video and customization with the buttons and things. There's a lot of small things in the OM5 that make it better than the M5 Mark III. But again, cumulatively, there is a big difference. But not everybody uses every feature on the camera, right? They might use just a few things, and that's their style of photography. So, the only thing that might benefit somebody is the new customizable function buttons on the OM5, and that wouldn't be enough to switch. Um, anyway, so yeah, so I have no regrets with the OM1. It has been probably, um, I would say, the second best camera purchase I ever made. The number one purchase I ever made being the Pen F, as always. There's no denying that the Pen F has been my favorite camera of all time. And I love taking that thing out with all its faults, because I've said many times that's got the worst autofocusing system of all the Olympus cameras I've ever used. It's, I mean, it doesn't focus well in low light. It misses focus a lot, and this is relative to the other OM system cameras, right? Not relative to systems in general. If I were to say the OM1 was 100%, the Pen F would be like an 85% type camera, right? In terms of, so it's close, but it's not as good as, say, uh, the other systems. And I wish I could really compare the autofocusing with other camera systems, and I may be able to in the future, but right now I just don't have any, Canon R5s or Nikon Z7s or Z9s. I just don't have the access to those cameras myself. I've been thinking about getting maybe an R8, the new Canon R8, because it's about 1500, and it's really about, it's not because I want to go full frame or anything, but strictly for um, this channel in a lot of ways, and so I can compare things a little more directly rather than like a lot of us do. We go online and we look at all the different reviews on these cameras, and none of them really do a side by side and say, okay, this next to this one. You know what I mean? And it's been, and that's one of the problems with a lot of these drive-by reviews online, is they have a camera for a couple of weeks, maybe they're lucky and keep it for a month or so, but ultimately they're not comparing side by side, and they're just saying, yeah, this is better, or no, this is not as good. They're not able to show you definitively, and you know how I am when I'm testing, right? I'm very methodical, and I try to be as thorough as I can, so that uh, there's no question that in this particular scenario, one camera is doing better than the other, just like I did for the autofocusing test. I mean, I took about 10,000. Well, actually, it came out to a little over 7,000 images I took when I was doing those autofocusing tests, and I had to throw out most of them, because for one reason or another, because I'd get I'd load them into my computer, and I'd look at them and I'd say, oh, there's something here that is not consistent, right? That I can't use this data to compare to the core data set. Whether it was, the lighting or the focus point. There was one reason or another I had to throw out so many images, and that's why there was a big gap. Well, 5 days. It took me 5 days overall to complete all those tests, and just so you know, I try to be as thorough as I can and as methodical as I can, because even though I don't have scientific equipment and yada yada, the key to doing comparisons and reviews is consistency and method, right? Being consistent in your methodology, so you'd have an apples to apples type comparison. And and that's what I'm thinking about always. I'm always thinking about other camera systems in that respect, because even if I found another camera system that was better in every way than the OM systems, for example, it's never going to be as small or as compact, rugged, lightweight as the overall system that you get with Micro Four Thirds, which is its key advantage, right? And the compromise in any kind of image quality or performance is offset for me by that size and weight, right? There's just no system that can give you this kind of performance and image quality in this size, right? In this kind of size. And that's the main reason this has been my system of choice for the last 6 or 7 years, however long I've been doing this, since I bought my first Micro Four Thirds camera, the EM10 Mark II. There's and it's taken over everything I do, both personally and professionally. And I have bought other cameras, and I still have other system cameras. I have a Sony, I have my Fuji here, which I'll talk a little bit about this. And I have Panasonic, of course, a Nikon sitting there, and a Canon. So I have them all, but I don't invest in those systems at all. I have them for different reasons, the Fuji, for example, I got that bug up my butt about the film simulations and stuff. And if you like those, they're fine, but that wore off quickly for me. It's like after a couple of photo walks with that camera using the film simulations, I was like, $1,000 just wasted just because I wanted to try something. But the advantage I have now is, and let me talk about this XT30. I bought this, I guess it's been a couple of years now, and I've taken it out only a few times. But I get the benefit having a channel of manufacturers wanting me to send me lenses to test out. And they sent me this one, which, so I'll be doing a review on this later, this lens in particular, not the camera so much. But, and it's not that and like a week after they sent me this Fuji lens, I get an email saying, oh, we now have it for Micro Four Thirds. And I'm like, oh, come on, could have just waited a week and gave me a Micro Four Thirds lens instead. But I do have that advantage to get lenses for other camera systems, cheap stuff, right, for now. But it's one of those things as a YouTuber, right? You have to kind of pay your dues a little bit when you start getting gear and equipment to test out. Sometimes they give it, most of the time you get it free, right? You have to pay your dues and put out good reviews in terms of quality of content, not so much trying to be all positive about something. You don't have, because I've gotten stuff and I didn't review it because after I got it, I was like, wow, it's not that great, so and they said that's fine, and I never got another lens from them again, which is okay, but you have to kind of pay your dues, and a lot of the offers I get are for lenses for other camera mounts. They don't have them for the Micro Four Thirds yet, or never will, for example. But by paying my dues in that sense, it's kind of like, you kind of build up your rapport with these different manufacturers, so that they can trust you'll do a good job in a timely fashion. And so I'll be doing a review on that lens, uh, later this week when I get some time, I guess. It's okay. It's not a bad lens. I mean, I'll talk about it later. It's an 18 millimeter pancake lens, so you can see it's not even pancake. It's more like a body cap lens, and they will have this for the Micro Four Thirds system as well. So I'll talk about that in the review. But it's basically a toy lens. You're not going to use it to get high quality images out of it. I mean, the images are okay, you know, and considering for the price, it's fine. But let me get. I need to spend some more time with the lens and get a feel for it. Today was the first day I've taken it out, and it's manual focus, so there's a lot of autofocus pictures, and that's user error, of course. But okay, man, I just tend to jibber jabber. I've been talking for 20, 30 minutes already. Let me get to John's question before he leaves. How you doing, John? Good to see you. Uh, Says I have the OM-1 and can't decide. Oh, I can show this to everybody. I can't decide which long lens to get for wildlife birding. You have the 300 Pro. Why did you choose that over the other long zooms from Ali or Panny? It's primarily because of the f4. It's the fastest lens of all the long zooms. I can't think of anything that even comes close, right? Everything is at least a stop, if not almost 2 stops difference. And when you're birding, you want to keep your ISOs as low as possible because, as you raise your ISOs, even one stop, you start to lose those fine details in the feathers and things. So that's the primary reason. I was very close to getting the 100 to 400 from Olympus. But at 300 millimeters, you're like at f6 something, right? You're more than a stop off. So I wanted to keep my ISOs low, and and it's hard to do that because you have to keep your shutter speeds up, right? 1/2000th of a second or higher, depending on the bird. And that's primarily why. And I had to trade in so much gear, stuff I kind of miss now, but I had to trade in a lot of stuff to get it, and I still had to pay out of pocket, a little bit of money to buy it. So it's a pretty substantial investment for me. But that's primarily why is I can shoot at say ISO 3200 instead of 6400, or instead of 3200 instead of 10,000. It's a big difference in terms of ISO and shutter speed that you can do at f4 instead of f5.6 or f6.7. Now there are shorter zooms, right? There's the Panasonic 200 f2.8, but that's the problem, is it's only 200 millimeters, and you have to trade off. Do you crop in more with a lower ISO, or do you have the 300 millimeters to start with? And I found that even at 300 millimeters, I always feel like I'm too short. Like I need to get closer. You need to get closer, right? So the 200 millimeter was definitely on my short list when I was thinking about fast, uh, fast telephoto lenses. But I realized that 200 millimeter just wasn't going to cut it. And then when you add the teleconverter that a lot of times comes with it, you're back up to f4, right? Anyway, or f5.6 with the 2x. So I just felt that when I looked at all the different choices, the 300 was it. Okay, and then let's see. Lots of people here. Good to see everybody. Oh my goodness, Marcia, how are you? Marco, good to see you. Let's see if there was any other questions. And Strummer Joe says, I enjoyed my first year bird photography being its main use. Unfortunately, it's back in Lisbon at the moment since getting fried. Oh my goodness. You fried it. I guess you're trying to go, oh, I didn't have any problems with the updating my firmware. But I'm always sweating bullets right until you see that okay on the screen. You plug that sucker in. I do it on my computer a lot of times. Actually, I think on the OM-1, I do it through the app instead now. But yeah, man, it's like, come on. Why is this taking so long? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that though. That sucks. And Marco says, Thomas Eisel seems to have thoroughly explained what's going on with the AF. Doesn't seem like there's an issue, just a side effect of the smaller focus points. I didn't watch that video. I haven't watched a lot of Tom's stuff. It's always great to have another channel come out and doing things to help the Micro Four Thirds community. So, Thomas, thank you for being there for us. It's greatly appreciated. But I haven't watched it. But definitely, if you use a tiny focus point, the chances of it grabbing a contrasty area are less, right? It's just simple. What's the word? This is like a simple word too, like in the English language, and I can't remember it. But it's the odds of grabbing a point are far less when you have a smaller point, right? With the bigger focus point or focusing lenses on the previous models, you're basically casting a wider net to capture contrast. So using a very small, think of it like fishing, right? If you have a very small net and you throw it out there, your chances of catching a fish are smaller than if you have a bigger net, right? So think of it that way. And so, that logic does apply. Does it matter in the real world? No, because ultimately in the real world, the camera has to perform, right? So again, I mean, the continuous autofocus does use, well, I mean, the SAF does also, but the continuous autofocus, you can see like it picks up 9 dots in every small area. And it's constantly scanning those 9 areas. So it's effectively a bigger net, right, when it's trying to focus. And I think that's why it was performing better. So there's certainly a lot of logic to what Thomas is saying, and I think, and I wouldn't disagree with it, but I'd say it ultimately doesn't matter, right? It has to perform. It's like, it doesn't matter how good the OM-1 is, if nobody buys it, they're going to go out of business. It's just that simple. So no matter how good the autofocusing system is, if it doesn't focus in real life, in real life conditions, in the real world, so to speak, it doesn't matter what the reason is for it not performing the same as the older systems. And David Allen says he saw Thomas Eisel's work. Yeah, I'll have to start watching his channel a little bit. Because the thing is, just like a lot of the other channels, when they talk about topics that I'm already familiar with, I might skim like a first minute or so of it and then move on to something more interesting, like I don't know. I like to watch a lot of car videos. I watched this video by Curious Cars. So when I'm on YouTube, I usually switch my brain off to and watch more entertaining things like scare cams. I love scare cams. Oh, the OM-5 has a native webcam functionality. I forgot about that. Yeah, like I said, it has a lot of little things, right? And David Black says the OM-5 is a great second camera to the OM-1. The OM-1 is my serious camera. The OM-5 is my fun camera. Yeah. Yep. My OM-5 has been, or I'm sorry, my EM5 Mark III. It's not getting much use lately, but when I do use it, I use it mainly for when I'm doing double duty on my astrophotography. I'll put it next to the OM-1 on my tracker and do some astro. I need to do some astro tutorials once I get better at it. I mean, I gotten some great images, but I can't hold a candle to a lot of the astrophotographer channels out there, like Ben over at Narrowband Channel, in terms of being able to do a tutorial or talk about it. Marcus says, you just got a new FL900 for $200. That's good. The Facebook Marketplace. I haven't tried that yet. It's still too new to me. My sister keeps telling me, you got to check out the Facebook Marketplace, man. There's some deals there. And I'm like, I don't know. It seems a little shady to me. It's just perception. It's not real. Randy, you are selling your film cameras. Wow. Wow, you're done with film, huh? That's surprising. I have more film cameras now than ever, thanks to David Tellett. He just gave me a bunch of great film cameras. Some of them are actually pretty valuable as well, so I really appreciate that. I need to get out and take some images with them. I just been so focused on making videos. I haven't had enough time to go out with them, but I definitely will. I have them right there on my shelf. Some of them I have already in my dry box, but let's see. Debating if the OM-1 would be good enough for event shooting. So I've only done one event, and it was fantastic for that. And it was very low light. But I would, if you can wait, I would talk to Robin Wong about it, because he does event type photography. Also, Jimmy Chang does a lot of event photography. Those two are probably better people to ask. So Jimmy's always doing well, not always. He's done a few live streams recently. That's probably a good place to catch him. But just leave a comment on any of their recent videos. And if it's related to autofocusing, all the better. But if you leave a comment on any of their videos, they're very good about getting back to you with a comment or a response, right? And you have really, but for me, I've only done one event in low light, and that's where you don't want the camera to fail, right? Because there's lots of events, and I know in good light it's no problem, right? I did another event, but that was in the daytime outdoors, so it was 100%, right? And it was also virtually 100% for me in low light. I didn't have any problems. I know I had to really. I was more worried about motion blur than I was about the autofocus when I was doing that event. And by motion blur, keeping my shutter speeds up uh, and using flash. I was worried about like 100 other things. I was not worried about the autofocus though. But I would say for any events outdoors and even indoors during the day, you don't need to worry. But when you talk about low light event, I've only done one, and I didn't have any problems. But that's just one, right? So I can't tell you definitively it's the best camera. and nobody can really. So you want to talk to people that, whatever camera system you think about buying, you want to ask people that use that camera in that particular capacity for its performance and why they use it. Because like me, right? Uh, for what I use my camera for, uh, I do a lot of commercial stuff, commercial real estate. I can tell you definitively, it's no problem at all. Without question, you can do professional commercial real estate photography or even residential real estate photography with the OM-1 and deliver fantastic results. But if your question about event photography, I've only done one, so I wish I could give you a better answer, but it wouldn't be a qualified answer. I could just tell you that I did one and it was great. Um, and then one other thing I'll say, like I said, for event photography, being able to carry a very small compact system with lots of reach, you put the 12 to 40 Pro on an OM-1, you, you know, you have a tremendous flexibility to capture different things at the event because it's so small. And in fact, at the event that I went to, I had the EM5 Mark III on my left hand and the OM-1 on my right hand with a dual camera with a dual camera strap. And I was ready for anything. uh, versus, man, think about carrying a 24 to 70 f2.8 Pro lens, or I'm sorry, just basically an f2.8 7200 full frame lens. It's double, triple the size. Do I think OMS, they definitely got feedback. Yeah, they definitely got feedback. I mean, I know for a fact they watch my videos, and just because I've been doing it so long, and Peter Forsgaard has contacted them about it, but the response is always pretty neutral, or I would imagine, that the response is a non-response, like we'll get back to you, whatever the issue is. And then they address it quietly in firmware or whatever. But they're definitely aware of the issue as it stands. And the issue meaning maybe it's just, I don't know. They need to, I wish, and it's not just OM system, it's any camera manufacturer, right? They're not very transparent when it comes to problems with their camera systems, and they usually just address them very quietly in a firmware update if it's possible, without ever admitting anything, right? So we're never going to hear directly from OM systems that if there is a problem, that there ever was a problem, right? They'll never say it, and that's true for any manufacturer. They'd be crazy to say something in public, like that. From a marketing perspective, they'd be crazy to say, yeah, we know we have a problem. The only time I've heard OM systems ever publicly state something, and this was usually through like interviews that you see with them, is they talked about the CAF tracking. They said they know that is not reliable, and they don't recommend using it. So that's the only time. And I wish I could point you to the article now, but I know I've read it. But yeah, other things they're not going to talk about. But the tracking on the Olympus cameras, oh my God, I'm not talking about subject detect. That's a different autofocusing technology. The tracking is just so bad. It's laughable, really. Someone did bring up a point that the tracking it seems to be more video centric, in terms of how it behaves, because tracking for photography, still photography, we're moving the camera a lot versus when in videography, usually the camera is stationary. Maybe there's some panning, but generally the camera is stationary and the subject is moving. And in that scenario, the tracking performs better. And I would say I noticed the tracking does work well in video mode, which seems contrary to why doesn't it work well in photo mode. But it makes sense to me because, in video, you're capturing 24, 30, 60 frames per second. So it's constantly reanalyzing every image and trying to predict movement. And when you're working in those kind of frame rates, I guess it has more data to work with so it can work better. In the scenario where in video, you're usually trying to hold still anyway, right? You're not doing this when you're recording video like you do in photography. So in that sense, it does make sense to me what this other viewer was telling me. So but that's not what people harp on about. They harp on like I do about, I'm trying to track this bird. Where why is my tracking point all the way over here and the bird's over here? And why is it when it goes out of frame and comes back in, it loses, in still photography, the tracking is terrible. The subject detect is awesome on the OM-1. It's beyond reproach. I mean, I don't know too many people where they compared things side by side. I forget the name of the other channel, but he had a Sony A1 and he compared it directly against the OM-1, and he chose the OM-1 because it had better performance. And there's been other comparisons, but that's the one that stands out to me for birding anyway. I see Corey's here. It's okay. I started late too, Corey, but good to see you. Let's see. How do I assess the general image quality of the OM-1 paired with a good lens like the 12-100 compared to APS-C equivalents? It's pretty much the same. I don't have a mod. Well, I'm lying. I have this Fujifilm, right? It's a relatively modern APS-C. It's an XT30, and I don't see much difference in image quality, if any. Now, I have done direct comparisons, not against the OM-1, but the Fuji against, say, I think my Pen F, maybe. And I do have some videos of comparing high ISO type images side by side. And yeah, there's definitely a difference. You can see, particularly at the very high ISOs, there's a tiny bit less noise in the APS-C. But for all intents and purposes in real world use, there's really almost no difference between the OM-1 and the APS-C type cameras. And when you step up to full frame, even real world difference to me is not that much. Nothing that because I use Photolab 6, which has that deep prime denoising. When you add that to the equation, and there's no reason not to add denoising software to the equation when you're considering purchasing cameras, in my opinion, because it's available to everyone, right? And when you add that in, the difference between even my tiny sensor cameras is pretty marginal in real life shooting. It's really only when you talk about very niche type scenarios, if you're in extremely low light all the time, then you definitely want to get a larger sensor camera. The larger, the better. Step up to APS-C, step up to full frame, step up to medium format. Get as big a sensor as you can so you can capture as much light as you can. But again, that the difference again to me is marginal, and the difference is that the compromise in quality over being able to have a much smaller system overall is a fair trade-off for me. I mean, I took some pictures with the OM-1 uh, at a photo walk, and I basically there was another person there with a Pentax K3 Mark II, and they had the 300 millimeter f4, so it's pretty much the same lens I had. I had a 300 f4, and they were not happy with the noise performance on their K3 Mark II because you have to keep your shutter speeds up so your ISOs go to 3200, whether you're on micro four thirds or full frame. The ISOs are pretty much the same, and even then she was not happy with the performance. So I said, okay, give me your memory card. I'm going to snap off a few shots for you, and you can take them home and look at them and see the noise performance of the OM-1. And I let her play with use the OM-1 for a little bit too while we were there. And she was just blown away by the performance of the autofocusing system and tracking the birds and the ease of use and the lightweightness versus the reach. But when she got home and looked at the images, she goes, yeah, there's a little bit more noise to deal with, right? But is that going to be offset by the performance in the field? In the real world, when you're using it, is offset by, the subject detect and all of that, so you can get more images. And then I told her, I said, the images, I've gotten fantastic images at high ISOs. I mean, I've gotten images at 20,000 ISO that look amazing. But that's in combination with the noise reduction type software. Like I said, I use Deep Prime. So when you look at camera systems in this day and age, I don't think you should look at it in the bubble of just the camera itself. You have to look at it with software that's available to you that can clean up the images to an unbelievable level. It's amazing the kind of detail that you can get out of an image. And I use DxO products. It's amazing the amount of detail you can pull out. I'm going to try some other products. They're starting to reach out to me about, like, they sent me Luminar Neo last week. So I'll have to look at these other tools. But, I'm the kind of guy, once I find one that works and I like it, I try to stick to it. And I'll look at other stuff briefly, but I'm like, it's, you get familiar with something, you just use it, right? Same thing with cameras. I'm just familiar, and I'm very happy with the micro four thirds systems. But it's not like I started with that. I switched from a full frame system. I used to be a Nikon full frame shooter, and I switched over once I saw the difference in quality wasn't significant for the kind of photography that I do. And I really love the small size and lightweightness of the system. And now I'm all in, right? That's the only system I invest my hard-earned money into anymore, is micro four thirds. But that's a long answer to a basic question, right? There's a difference, but not much, especially APS-C, very, very little difference. Which reminds me about DP Review. They have like side by side. You can go into their image comparison tool and look at whatever camera you're thinking about and compare it to any micro four thirds camera that they have in their day, and they have all of them really, and see if there's much difference to you. And then keep in mind, you can clean that up. You can download those images for now. Apparently they're being shut down, but for now you can download the images, run them through software, and see if you think after processing them if there's still enough difference. Because APS-C systems, aside from Fuji, APS-C systems, the lens choices are not as are not as good anymore. They're not building on that quite as much as they used to. And Corey says, I'm very impressed with my EM1X, but the most pro grade lens I have is the 60 macro. I have a few of the 1.8 primes, but they're working. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't bought, the only pro lens I really bought was the 300 millimeter f4 Pro. I also bought the 12 to 40 f2.8, and I think the other pro lens I have is the 8 millimeter f1.8 fisheye lens. I don't think I have any more pro lenses. I'm very enticed though by the 25 millimeter 1.2 Pro. I'm thinking about getting that. I'm trying to balance that and maybe getting another camera that I can compare. You know, I just don't have the budget to buy everything I want, you know. And all right, this has to be said. The EM1X just bought Friday was used Photo Pro. It was $700 with only 3.3K shutter count. That is, man, for $700. Wow, that's amazing. That is an amazing deal. I would probably get one too. I borrowed David Tellett's EM1X for a couple of weeks. I just gave it back today actually, and it's a fabulous camera. I mean it's the bird tracking is not as good as the OM-1, but it's really amazing. You know, it's just so smooth, and the way the grip and everything, the way it feels in my in your hand, it's I think it's kind of like the G9 from Panasonic for me. It's one of those cameras I would love to have when my budget allows. You know, I would love to have an EM1X. I'd love to have a Panasonic G9. Uh, Another camera I'm drooling over right now, not even Micro Four Thirds, is an APS-C, is the Leica CL. You know, it looks a lot like the Pen F, actually. Or really, the Pen F looks like a Leica more than it does, more than the Leica looks like a Pen F, right? But yeah, that Leica CL, I don't know why I'm drooling over that lately. And I looked at the color science, you know, some images from it, and I can see a little difference. Enough that I would buy it just for that? No, because you can tweak colors, you know, to your blue in the face in post processing. But uh, you know, just like my Pen F, being able to hold something that was built, you know, in a very, you know, having a very high quality, precision built, you know, device in your hand. There's just something about it that I really like. Just and the Leica, I held the CL before, way back, you know, at one of their events, at an event at the camera store, and I was like, wow, this camera's something else, you know. So one of these days, we'll see. Um, I do not recall his name, Johnny. I'm sorry. Uh, I don't recall at all. Sorry about that. And another vote for Thomas Eisel. Okay, I'll check him out. I just haven't, but I'm very happy that he is contributing to the Micro Four Thirds community as much as he is, because his thumbnails are always popping up in my YouTube stream, right? Along with Jimmy and Peter and Robin and Tony, and I only watch Tony's stuff when I see Chelsea's thumbnail, but I haven't watched much of their stuff yet either. And George is asking, are the firmware updates available for a long time? They are. The latest one is available always, but if you want to, if you're say on version 1.2 and you missed 1.3 and now 1.4 is available, you're not going to be able to get 1.3. You're going to have to upgrade to 1.4. I've seen exceptions where they say you have to upgrade in steps, like you need to do 1.2 before you go to 1.3, and then before you can go to 1.4, you have to have one. I've seen scenarios like that. I can't remember which cameras those are, but they're available for a long time. The last firmware until they come out with another one. Then once a new one comes out, you can't get the one before that. At least with the Olympus cameras. And I don't agree with you on your view of CAF with tracking. Okay. Trains are different, right? Because trains, the way CAF tracking works is, and I can see where it would do well with a scenario like that, is the CAF tracking basically it tries to be predictive as well. So it's not only looking for shapes and objects. So it also tries to be predictive in where the subject's going to go to. And a train is pretty predictable because it's on a track, right? So I can see where on a track, or doing cars, the tracking is going to be probably perfectly fine. I haven't tried that myself, right? But that makes a lot of sense to me that a train and CAF tracking is going to work well. But CAF tracking on a bird that's, doing this, there's no way. There's no way. But it makes sense to me that a train on track, with tracking would work well. That makes sense to me. So I don't think we disagree. I just think we're talking about different scenarios. And Randy is giving some feedback. The D500 and the EM1X, they're just not that much difference. So the D500 is an APS-C 20 megapixel Nikon DSLR. It's a few years old, but it still has a great sensor. So in relationship to, is there that much difference between APS-C and Micro Four Thirds? There's another vote for not so much, right? Not so much difference. Especially Canon APS-C cameras. Yeah, I would argue they're not even as good as Micro Four Thirds. But that's just gut. That's not a tested methodology like I did with the AF system. Oh, thank you. Mike Lane is the one comparing the Sony to the OM-1 for birding. So if you want to see a direct comparison, because not many people do that, Sony A1 versus the OM-1. It was Mike Lane. Yeah. And David Allen says, although I've had great success using denoising like from Topaz and DxO, I've also had less than adequate results as well. I think it depends on how bad the noise is in the original image. Yeah, definitely. I mean, at some point, the noise destroys the detail to beyond what can be recovered anyway. But it's still pretty amazing what can be done. And the DP review guys are moving to, yeah, Chris and Jordan. They're going over to Petapixel. So that was an easy subscribe, right? It's like you see them on Petapixel, you just subscribe if you like them, And I think most people do. It was certainly an easy instant subscribe for me as soon as I saw them over there. And D Prime XD is making my portraits lustrous, like it was printed on lustrous matte print. So I don't know if that's a positive or negative, but you definitely have to be careful with higher ISO noise on skin because I don't do enough portrait work to be able to come up with a workflow that would improve, because I have seen and people have talked about how on portraits, people's faces, you can make them look glassy, right? Like a doll almost. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, maybe, but the few that I've done, I've noticed that I've had to, and I can do this in Photolab 6 Elite. I can control the luminance noise and the noise algorithm a little better than you can in DxO Pure Raw 3, which I need to do a video on because I have it now. But I didn't want to just drop on the launch day like everybody else did, because I'm not really about just, and like I said, I don't want to take away from anyone else's channels, but launch day was, I think, April 15th or March 15th. I'm sorry. And there must have been 100 videos on DxO Pure Raw 3 that day, right? And I had the opportunity. The DxO gave me a copy, before the launch day, obviously. So I had the same opportunity as everyone else. But, I didn't know what I could add to the conversation that would be, positive, or not positive, but new, right? If there's already 100 videos out there on DxO Pure Raw, well, what am I going to say about it that's different or new? So I wanted to take a little more time with it and deal with issues like this, right? Because after the product launch, for example, whatever that product is, I like to go to the forums and read what people have to say about it, because you see the YouTube video, you get all excited because they're just pumping this thing out like crazy, how great it is and how wonderful. And then people start buying them because they get caught up in that hype, and then that's when you get that's when you get what people's real experiences are when they're putting it in real life, using it. And so I was reading a lot of comments about the effect that the denoising has on people's faces, right? For portrait type stuff. Whether it's portrait or just events, whatever the scenario is, but reducing noise on people's faces has been one of the major issues that have come up in the forums. So it's going to take me some time. It might be another month or so before I get to it. But I didn't, it's kind of like when I've watched some of these viral videos on other stuff, and there'll be like 2,000 comments on that video. Why on God's name would I add another comment to the video? You know what I mean? Like, who's going to see it? It just makes no sense to me to waste my time leaving a comment on a video that already has like 2,000 comments on it. So why would I waste anybody's time by putting out another video on a launch of a product when there's already 100 other people putting a video out for the launch day? What value am I going to add to that? I'm just adding to the noise, really, the way I see it. So that's why if you look at the history of my channel, you can go back to when I started. you rarely see, if ever. I don't think I have a single launch day type video. I don't have one. And I don't have that many reviews. And the reviews I do are usually compared to what? You know, okay, I have this prime lens compared to the zoom lens, or two zoom lenses compared to each other, or this pair of zoom lens compared to this single zoom, because it just no point to review and look at something in a bubble all by itself. Like I haven't even done a review on the OM-1 uh, when it launched. I certainly talked about it a few times in my live streams, but I've never done a video saying, look at this, look how it performs this. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, the IBIS is amazing. There's already so many videos out there. I don't know what value. I would just be adding noise to it, noise to the, to paraphrase uh, out there. And it's really a waste of people's time for me to do that until I can do something that would be different, like the autofocusing issue. That was something I felt that uh, I could add some value to and validate whatever the issue was, validate or invalidate. But I happen to validate Robin's claims uh, with the autofocusing, and there's certainly flaws in my methodology, and the main one being it's not real life, for me or most people. But I did want to test it because everybody asked me, what do you think about this thing that Robin talked about? And I'm like, I don't know. Let me try and see. And I'm not just going to shoot something in low contrast. I want to be able to have results that I can reproduce consistently. And the same thing goes for any product that comes out. Like the DxO Photolab 6 that I use. I bought Photolab 4 with the film pack, when it came out, and the viewpoint. So I spent, $280 some dollars or whatever of my own money. And then I upgraded to Photolab 5 again with my own money. And then I started producing videos because I really liked the product. And now that Photolab DxO is recognized that I have done some videos on it, they reached out to me, say, would you like to try Photolab 6? So now I have that luxury, right? I'm paying my dues, so to speak, as a YouTuber. And like I was saying earlier, when you have to pay your dues a little bit as a YouTuber, and so that you can get the bigger sponsoring and stuff. But rest assured, my integrity. I never want to compromise my integrity in the reviews that I do, just because I'm being sponsored or given a product for free. And I'll try to stay true to the viewers of what I think, as always. So that's kind of the, but there's always that subconscious level, right? In my subconscious mind, I'm not thinking about it consciously, but subconsciously, I do have a rapport with this company and the people that work there. Subconsciously, I may not be as subjective as I can be, right? So that's why it's important to disclose, I got this product for free in exchange for a review. Or, I mean, they kind of require it by law anyway, but it is important to disclose your relationship sometimes when you have one, so that people can, watch whatever you do with a grain of salt and say, well, they just gave him that product, of course he's going to say good things about it, right? But nobody gave me anything I got from Olympus or OM Systems, right? I paid all that with my own money. Every camera and every lens from OM Systems and Olympus I got with my own money. All the camera bodies, just I think most reviewers, they have to buy their own cameras. They're not given cameras. Maybe Casey was given a lot of free cameras. I don't know, but or what's that other Peter McKinnon? They probably give him cameras for free, but all the same, like this lens I got a review, it's not an expensive lens, paying my dues, so to speak, but I am going to review that. and show you the images and talk about it. But I am conscious that if I do say something super negative, right, that the likelihood of ever getting another lens from these people is pretty low. And consciously, I'm thinking, so what? You know, if their lenses are crap, why would I want another one? But subconsciously, at some level, I'm thinking, you know, if I want to get more free stuff, you know, I have to kind of we'll see. You guys can watch my review and tell me what you think. But just keep that in mind. That's true. That's just human nature, right? You have a rapport with somebody. It's like, you know, somebody hates my sister or my brother, or you know, and I'm like, oh, they're not that bad. You know, yeah, he or she has a few quirks, but they're really a good person deep down, right? Because you know the family. You're always going to say something nice about your family. Um, just anyway. I think the 12 is going to be my first. Yep. Yeah, if you have the OM-1, Corey, the 12 to 40 2.8 is definitely like bread and butter. They go together. The OM-1 and the 12 to 40 Pro, that is that is the perfect combination. When I took my EM1 Mark III and 12 to 40 Pro out because you know the OM1 wasn't out yet on one of my long-term trips, and that was a perfect combination for everything. And then adding a couple of fast primes is always a good idea. You and me both, right? That little Sony RX100, the full frame compact. The only problem I have with it is that it's a fixed focal length, right, of 35. I'm not I'm not as much a fan of the 35 anymore as I was a couple years ago. I'm a big 25 millimeter guy or 50 millimeter equivalent. And John, another shout out for the M1X from John Follows. It is a terrific camera, no question. And Anthony would like to see the OM2 with a 20. And I did get, I'm sorry, Anthony, I didn't respond to your other emails about the polar bears and stuff. I just been so busy. Uh, but I do read your emails, and I read everyone's emails. I just can't always respond or don't always respond to them. Uh, but I think the the next step, if they do 25 or 26 megapixels, I'm not going to be that excited because it's not going to offer me anything more than really more for what I do. Again, for what I do, it's not going to offer me anything more than what I can do with my OM1. What would excite me is if they do 33 megapixels and 8K video. Not that I ever would shoot 8K video. I'm a big 1080p for life kind of guy. I could care less about 4K even. But from a marketing standpoint and checking the box, if OM Systems could come up with a 33 megapixel 8K camera that could competently autofocus and do everything, that would be cool. And another thing is, I put up a survey. A lot of you have probably seen it from about a month ago. You know, and I think it might have been Anthony, might have been someone else, inspired this survey. You know, if OM Systems came out with a high megapixel camera, but you had to sacrifice dynamic range or high ISO performance and autofocus performance, it essentially making it a landscape high resolution camera, would you get one? And 1/3 of the response was, yeah, I would definitely add that camera to my system, or I would have bought that camera instead of the OM-1 for the higher resolution. That was very interesting to me that a third of the people that responded. I think 450 some people responded. That was very interesting. And then about 40% said, the high-res shop mode is fine. I don't really need a high-resolution camera. I can just use high-res shop mode. And then the others, the remaining 10 or 12%, whatever that was like not interested at all in high resolution. And I kind of fall into that camp, right? The high-res shop mode's good enough for me, and I'm not really interested in a high-resolution camera if it's going to compromise the other features of the camera. That's where I fall. But, would I get one in addition to the OM-1? Then in that case, I would say I'm not interested, right? High res is good enough. I would never get one instead of an OM-1 with those kind of compromises. And then this looks like a question. It says, on the M1 Mark II, if I look the image on the monitor as I get close to the viewfinder, the image disappears. And I'm ready for next frame. On the OM-1, it stays on. Is there a way that it can be disabled? So let me think. If I look at the image on the monitor, and as I get close, oh, okay. Yeah. On the OM-1, so basically what's happening is the eye sensor is detecting, right? So you're looking at the image, and then as you get closer, it disappears, right? So let's see. It is, let's see if I can remember. Yeah, okay, so this is pretty straightforward. Let's see if this is working. It's crooked. It's hard to do this upside down. Go into the menu. Turn this off, maybe. It's upside down, I'm sorry. But see the wrench menu? And then where it says EVF adjust, get it to focus. Eye sensor settings. Go there and turn this off. Like so. And then there's some other options here. I can't see it myself, but there's some other options here. Behavior when switched. So try a couple of these options here, but that's the main thing, is turn the EVF auto switching off. So now when I put my finger up to the display, it doesn't turn off. And that should be all you need to do. And then check out the other options there as well. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. And let's see. And so what value would you add? Not everyone who reviews products puts the efforts in that you do to be sure. Yeah, I try, Alan. I try to be fair and thorough. It only seems like I put a lot of effort in because it's so hard for me. I don't know what it is. I feel like my energy level is about half what it was than it was just a few years ago. But I appreciate that. I do try. Oh my God, Lauren is here. Yes, I'm alive. And Peter says, as an owner of 2 OM-1 system cameras, OM-1 cameras and 3 cracking OM lenses, I would like to thank you for imparting your knowledge. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm always happy to help. Lawrence asked me about OM-1. I have no idea. I tried. They offered to send me a license for it. I didn't accept it um, because just I use Photolab and I'm happy with that, and I want to get good at using that. It's just like really anything is, if you can just get something and get started and get good at it, uh, try not to get distracted by all these different offerings all the time. Now, if there's something out there that OM-1 does specifically well that you need, then yeah, definitely you want to check it out and try it and see if it makes sense. But it's like I use Lightroom forever and I still have it. I still pay the $10 or whatever it is per month. But now Lightroom and Photoshop are more like a plug-in for Photolab rather than the other way around. I only use Lightroom and Photoshop when I need to do an HDR or something, right? But I do need to answer someone else's question from one of the comments. I'm going to do another video this week about HDR. But and then the only other thing I really use it for is because I can layer multiple photos in Photoshop, and I need to do that a lot in my professional work. So I use it for that one thing, really, is being able to layer. The workflow of being able to layer photos between Lightroom and Photoshop is unmatched in any other software. And that's something I need for my professional work. But other than that, for everything else, 99% of my photos I edit using Photolab. I don't know what OM-1 has to offer. I mean, I could email them and they'd send me a license like that, right? I'm sure. But at this point, I can't do everything. Topaz, if I email them, they will send me a license if I ask them, because they've offered it to me. But I said, I'll do the 30-day free trial. If I like it in that 30 days, then maybe give me a license and I can start to do tutorials on how to use it and the kind of results and yada yada, right? But after doing the 30-day trial, I was like, well, I think DxO is doing a better job. There's certainly some drawbacks to DxO, the Pure Raw in particular at the time. I don't know about Pure Raw 3. I think they fixed some of those issues, but the Pure Raw 2 at the time was superior in the noise reduction, but inferior in workflow, right? It didn't handle all kinds of like you can't do JPEGs with Pure Raw 2. I don't know about Pure Raw 3. I haven't really looked at it yet. But Pure Raw 2, you couldn't do JPEGs, you couldn't do other types of files, whereas Topaz will take just about anything you throw at it, right? And it will do a good job. It'll do a very good job with anything you give it. But I was invested in DxO with my own money, and I think I showed in one of my videos that it did do a better job. But you have to balance that with workflow, right? Maybe Topaz, it can do almost as good a job, but has a better workflow for you. Just like Micro Four Thirds has better workflow for me in real life, even though I can probably get better image quality out of a full frame camera. Overall, the Micro Four Thirds system gives me a better workflow and gets me there, 99%. Now that I have the OM-1, do I still use the M5 Mark III sometimes, or even the EM10 Mark II, or is the difference that big? Difference is not that big in terms of just still images, taking pictures, shot, point and shoot type photography, right? It's not that much difference. And a better question would be, has the OM-1 really replaced all the other cameras I have? And the answer is no. I still use the Pen F most of the time for just about everything. except birds in flight, sports action type photography. Because most of the stuff I do is point and shoot. The Pen F is also 20 megapixels, but I just love the form factor and the feel of that camera in my hands, the quality of that camera. Not that the OM-1 isn't a quality built camera. It's nice, beautiful, all metal, titanium, whatever it is, right? You can't knock the build quality on the OM-1, but the Pen F to me is very special. So it has not replaced the Pen F for 99% of my own personal stuff. You know, when I go to my nephew's birthday parties or Christmas, Thanksgiving, you know, whatever it is, all my family personal stuff, just about all of my photo walks that I do, street photography or whatever, Pen F. OM-1 is not replaced because the difference in image quality is almost negligible in real life. Sure, if you push the cameras to their extreme, the OM-1 is going to outperform every other camera by OM systems, right? In terms of image quality, it's definitely going to outperform. But in day-to-day real-life shooting, it's not that much difference. Even from the EM10 Mark II, I could go out with the EM10 Mark II side by side with the OM-1, do some street photography, and you know, in a blind test, nobody's going to be able to tell. You know what I mean? But like I said, when you start doing test charts or doing systematically pushing the cameras to certain limits that you know the EM10 Mark II cannot deal with, that's when people start to say, "Oh, get rid of the EM10, just get the OM-1, or get rid of OM-1 and just get the Sony A1." You know, it's like it's just, to me, these very small differences get overblown between camera systems. And yeah, so yeah, the answer is no, the OM-1 has not replaced my stills cameras. It's not that much better for point and shoot type stuff. Now, workflow in a professional sense, I could never really use the Pen F. I did use the EM10 Mark II professionally, my commercial real estate. That's what got me, you know, that's the camera that switched me over, actually, because I was able to use the custom buttons and dials and program custom functions into the dial or to one of the buttons. You can't do that with the newer EM10s, but anyway, yeah. So the answer is no. The OM-1 is, there's not that much difference in point and shoot stuff. Astrophotography, it's a little better. It's a lot better if you know what you're doing. I'm not quite there yet. But Ben over at Narrowband Channel is convinced the OM-1 is superior camera to everything else, and by a healthy margin. And okay, so Gigi Poggy says I answered his question. Very good. Or her question. I'm not sure. I can't tell from the name there. And what do you think about the iceberg picture that I took? I didn't see that one. I didn't see the iceberg picture. I haven't looked at my email since yesterday, actually. Come to think of it, I will take a look. I did see an iceberg picture from a week ago. That was really nice. I think I did reply to that one. By budget, Mike, what is your budget? You know, if you're talking about $40, you know, the Boya boom mic, it's a little tiny one made by Boya. It's about this big, about that long. It's really good for 40 bucks. It's directional, right? If you have about 3 times that amount, $120. This is really good. This is a Comica VM120. Comica VM120. That's what I'm using here. See? So I'm pointing it everywhere. Probably can't hear me too well when I point it this way. So just to give you an idea that the noise rejection. So now I have the mic pointing away from me, right? And then if I point it towards me, see the difference? So you get the longer the mic, the better the rejection of sound. So I have a review on this microphone, and I think also the Boya mic on my channel. So if you want to go on camera mic, those are the two I recommend: the Boya and this Comica VM120. But once you get into the $100 range, you might as well go wireless. That other Comica Venmo C or whatever, I reviewed that on my channel as well. That is an awesome microphone system. I haven't done any vlogging all year, so it's kind of sitting on the shelf. But I did do a review on it about a month or so ago, and I think it's about 120 bucks as well. That's the way to go, wireless mic system. That particular one. This other one is really good too, but it's older. I have a review on this on my channel for this. I already have tape all over it. And of course, if you want to spend the big bucks, you can get the Rode wireless mic system. That's the one where you see all everybody's got like this big square thing on their shirt. That's a good system. But this Venmo C that I got, it's about 30% less price than the Rode system, and it's even better in my opinion. Because I have the Rode mics too, but I never used them. I didn't think they sounded quite as. They didn't make my voice sound the way I like to hear my own voice. It's not that the quality wasn't good. It was very good quality, but it had definitely a very different sound. It processed my voice a little bit differently than these other mics. So there's a little bit of subjective reason. There's a little bit of subjective reason for me using these microphone systems rather than the Rode. So keep that in mind. Is there a big difference? I think in image quality, no, there's no difference. Nothing perceptible, right? Without pixel peeping 1000%. The biggest difference is the speed, right? f2.8 versus f4. If you don't mind the little bigger lens, the f2.8 definitely get the 12 to 40 f2.8. If you prioritize compactness, the 12 to 45 is the way to go. That extra 5 millimeters is nothing, right? You're talking about cropping in just a little bit on the edges, the difference between 40 and 45. But in terms of light, a full stop difference, that's a big deal. If you're going to be shooting, particularly in low light all the time. If you're shooting landscapes and outdoor all the time, then maybe the 12 to 45 is fine because it's a little cheaper too, I believe. I believe it's cheaper. Then that'll be fine. But I think long term, you're going to want the f2.8. So I would just get the f2.8. But image quality, there's no difference. And there's tiny bit more shallower depth of field with the f2.8, but not enough that I would say get the 2.8 for that. Don't get it because there's a little bit shallower depth of field. There's not that much difference in real life. But there's definitely a full stop is a big difference. And long term, that extra 100, maybe it's 200 more, you can get a used one for about the same price. Long term, it's better to get the f2.8 in my opinion. Yeah, Randy bought the microphone that I just talked about because he asked me what microphone to get, And I told him, get this one, it's good. you know. So Randy has a YouTube channel as well where he drives around in the desert and stuff and chases storms and all kinds of things. But he was struggling with sound because, a lot of times out in the desert it's windy, and he's dealing with a gimbal. He has all his own issues, right, as a vlogger. But I think, yeah, definitely you're gonna like that microphone as much as I did. It's amazing, the noise canceling feature. And Plato's here. Hello. Yeah, it's getting late. I need to wrap up soon, right? Oh, hi, Daisy. Yeah, I know you left a comment about 3 weeks ago about the FLM3 flash, right? I will cover that. I do have one video on the FLM3 that is it doesn't go into detail, but it definitely gives you a good overview of how to use that flash. It's a very recent video. I forget what it's called. You've probably seen it already. Let me look it up real quick. I watched it again because I'm gonna make a video for you. It's episode number 390. I don't have my glasses on. 393. So I'll put a link in the thing here. Episode 393. I do watch that one if you haven't already, to kind of hold you over until I can do more of an in-depth type tutorial on how to use that flash. And I think Robin Wong also has a video on it, but I haven't watched that one. But yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get to it yet. I am going to get to it though. The FLM3, the small flash that comes with the OM-1, and talk about how to use that. Corey says $50 to $100 is your budget. Okay. Yeah, the Comica mic is really good. Because I think they come in a single mic. I don't know, Randy, if you can let Corey know how much you paid for your mic, because you bought the single mic setup, right? Wireless mic setup. Oh, Lauren. Hey, Lauren. Yeah, Ellie's out on the porch getting some sun. She's in the sun room, as I call it. But okay. Yeah, Plato got his lens for $500. That's a good deal. And I think David Crooks got his for like 400. The 12 to 42.8. That's definitely a way to go. But okay, I don't see any other questions. And oh, Randy, yeah, Randy has he got the single mic set up for $90. It's an excellent mic. I'll show it to you. Yeah, it's this one. Comes in this really nice. Well, I don't know what Randy's came in. I got the dual mic version, right? Paying my dues, so to speak. But anytime Comica asks me to do a review, I do it because I've been using their mics for a long time. I paid for the first set myself, out of my own money. And but now, now whenever they come out with something new, they send me an email. I get so many emails. Like I got so many emails to do LED light reviews. I'm thinking about doing some of those too. But yeah, this is, sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. But this is like the mic that you put, and the way I do it, I was trying to tell Randy in the email, I like to tuck it like underneath my collar here. Or if I can, a lot of times I wear a vest like I am today. I'll tuck it under my vest down here so you can't see it. And that works pretty well. But this has a noise canceling feature on it that's really amazing. Like if you watch my video review, I was so amazed when I turned noise canceling on. It comes with a bunch of cables and crap, but these companies, they put a lot of money in, they put a lot of time into making nice cases and stuff for their stuff. If I had one complaint about this mic system, is that you can't plug in a lavalier mic. So I wouldn't call that a complaint. It just doesn't have that ability. Because sometimes just putting a little lav mic underneath is more convenient than, even as small as that is, that can be a little bit awkward sometimes too, depending on what you're wearing. And whereas a lav mic would be more convenient, but that's really the only thing. Oh, you know what you can do, Lauren, is I'm going to end the stream here in a few minutes, but you can just post it in the comment below, a link to your gallery after after the stream ends, of course. Oh, and one more thing, the single mic is mono sound, so you'll probably have to fix that in post. I don't know. I'll have to try. I've always used it as a single mic setup, but I didn't have any problems with. So you're saying you're only getting, you should be able to get audio to both channels. It'll be mono, but you should be able to get audio to both channels with a single mic setup. I know for a fact. With mine, I can't. But maybe the single mic setup it comes with a different receiver, but I can't imagine that it does. Okay, what would be the best Astro lens? A 12 f2. It's fine. It depends. When you say Astro, there's very simple astrophotography, like these 30-second, 1-minute exposures. You take one picture of a vast sky and you're trying to capture the Milky Way. So that's like summertime type astrophotography. 12 millimeter f2 is fantastic. Better though. And you can get a used one for about the same price as the 8 millimeter f1.8 fisheye lens. That would be the best astro lens for that type of astrophotography, where you just want to take one shot and capture the Milky Way with the landscape, that kind of stuff, right? Or you want to do star trails, the 8 millimeter f1.8. After that would be, the 12 millimeter f2. But deep sky astrophotography, you need to get a telephoto lens, actually. Obviously 100 to 400. I use the 300 f4 Pro for my deep sky astro. That kind of stuff, you want a telephoto lens. But I think what you're referring to is the single shot, captured in 1 or maybe 10 frames and blend them. But you're not talking about deep sky objects, right? Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap it up here, everyone. So thank you so much for joining me. It's great to see everybody again and hang out with you guys and gals. It's always good. I always have a good time. And I appreciate you being here with me. And I will be back again next month, maybe like the third Sunday, whatever the date that is. But I'll try and make it a little more consistent at least every third Sunday of the month. But in the meantime, I'm going to be cranking out as many videos as I can on any questions you guys have. Just leave them in the comments of of any recent video and I'll see them. And that reminds me, if I don't respond to your comment, okay, it's not because I'm ignoring it. It's because if I respond to the comment, it disappears off my queue and it's very hard to find afterwards, right? But if I leave it open, like unanswered, then it stays at the top of the queue so that I can see it when I go into my YouTube channel and look for questions. So so me not responding to your question is a good thing. But if it's been like a month and I didn't respond, then you might want to make another comment because that means I've totally forgotten about it or for whatever reason. But I always try to respond, whether it is I don't know or I will make a video or I'll give you an answer. If it's a quick answer, you know, I can just type something in quick and it's not confusing, then I'll do that. But if I don't answer it and it's only been a few days, maybe a week, it's because I intend to make a video about it. Because sometimes just typing in an answer is not good enough. You know, making a short video like these Ask Rob Trek things that I do now is the way I'm going to respond to it. And then I'll respond to the email or to your comment and say, I made a video and put the link. So if I didn't respond to your comment, then it's a good thing. Okay. So keep that in mind. And thanks again for joining me today. And I will see you guys again soon.